What's up, Mitch? I think we're still in our same room.
Looks like it.
Right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So hi,
All
everyone,
right.
and welcome to our MIT LGO webinar. Today, we will be focusing on the internship experience, which is a unique component of our dual degree program. My name is Pam Searle, and I work on the admissions team here. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Ted Equi, who's the Director of Academics, Research, and Careers here at LGO. And we're also joined by 4 of our current LGO students who are either just completing their internship or who are currently interning. So for today's session, we will have Ted kick things off with an internship overview. Then we'll have our current students briefly discuss their internship projects, followed by a panel discussion on their internship experience. Then we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the Q&A chat feature. My colleague Sharona Bollinger will also be answering some of those during the session, but we'll save some for the end so the panelists can answer those as well. So with that, I will hand it over to Ted.
Great. Thanks everyone for joining. The LGO internship is a unique part of the LGO program. And the program, when it was first founded, was built around the internship being an integral part of the academic experience. It's not your typical summer intern if you're an MBA or even an engineering student. The internships are with one of our partner companies, and it's a 6-month-long continuous 2 semesters. So you will be here for a total of 6 semesters, 4 of them taking classes, and then 2 of them you'll be doing your thesis research at a partner company for 2 contiguous semesters. The overall internship process is actually the students are engaged with it and helping run the process, helping source the projects. It's nice that Tony and Shelby are here. They were both part of the internship committee. So we have a student committee that tries to collect interest from their class and provide information to our partners as information so that when they're generating the projects, there's some alignment to engineering majors and interests, because each class has a different profile and different interest. So in the summer, those profiles are developed, sent out to the companies, and then the companies will put in project proposals. And the project proposals are for 2 flavors. We have a set of students, about 30% of them, that do their internships from February, which is their first spring, and to August, which is the second summer, or from June, which is the second summer, through December, second fall. And we have a mixture of students that did Feb start and June start. So I'll leave it to them to sort of describe the experience. Once the companies generate the proposals, again, the committee gets involved to review the content, give companies feedback to make the projects potentially more clear or interesting, assessing which engineering departments, because not every project is a good fit for each of the engineering departments. And then our research staff is also involved in that content review. The faculty advisors change a little bit by department. Some of the departments, Aero, Astro, and Civil, have faculty advisors assigned when you're actually admitted to the program. EECS and mechanical engineering, Tony and Shelby are in those departments. Actually, after you're matched to your project, then we as staff members help identify an appropriate faculty advisor based on the content of that. So you interview for the projects, And we then use a matching algorithm based on your preferences as students and the company's preferences of the students they've interviewed. And the students are then matched and start off with their faculty advisor selection and dive into the content of the internship. So throughout the internship, you're doing some academic deliverables, creating the project, and again, I'll leave it to the students, but you as a student have an initial proposal, but you craft what it is that's going to be the content of your research. So there's a lot more agency over the details of what you're going to do. So the project proposals are fairly broad, and then you dive in. The other thing is their real world problems. So life will change between the time that the project is posted and you've actually started at the company. Yes, because the companies are continually moving and changing. So that's a pretty exciting part in my view. Students may have a different view, but you know, the fact that it is dynamic and you're having an impact to really create that high impact project deliverable for the company, and the fact that you base your thesis on a real world problem as opposed to something that's esoteric or in a lab that may not see the light of day for another 10 years. So that's kind of a high level overview. The key takeaways is that the project needs to be aligned with your engineering department, and all internships are done with partner companies. And we work hard to source the appropriate number and type of projects to match what the student profile is for that year. The number of students and the distribution of cross departments changes year to year. Mitch's year, we had quite a number of AeroAstro students. The LGO 24s, we have 2 AeroAstro students. So it's not a consistent stream every year. So with that, I think that's kind of a high level overview of the internships and how it fits in with the academic approach. It is a key part of your academic experience as an LGO.
Great, thanks, Ted. So next we'll move on to the student portion. So I'd like to ask each student to introduce themselves and then briefly describe a bit about your project. So why don't we go in the order of Scott, Shelby, Mitch, and then Tony.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Hungerford, LGO 23. I'm in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department, so course 1. I'm currently working with American Industrial Partners, AIP, which is a partner company for LGO. They're a private equity firm that focuses on manufacturing and industrial companies. So I'm working at one of their portfolio companies, which is an aluminum rolling mill, and it's in Kentucky. And if you don't know what an aluminum rolling mill, don't worry, because I didn't know what it was either before. Essentially, they take very large slabs, like if you think of like a gold bar, like a square bar, think of that like 1,000 times bigger and made of aluminum. And they convert those, what they call ingots, into like finished products, into like rolled aluminum coils. And they use those for different end uses, like, you know, construction or automotive or, you know, any other industry. And so that's what we manufacture here. My role was really, I'm trying to understand or help them understand what the maximum capacity was of their facility. Because of course there's like a nameplate capacity that is given by like manufacturers of different machine centers. But in manufacturing, product mix greatly impacts the amount of volume you can get through through like a manufacturing plant. So helping them understand like how product mix impacts volumes, helping them understand not just one machine center capacity, but the capacity of the entire plant, which has multiple different steps throughout the process, was really my main focus. But yeah, excited to be here. Happy to chat about my experience, things I've learned, and kind of the journey of selecting this internship.
Great. Hey y'all, my name is Shelby Unger. I am an LGO 23 in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department, so Core 6. And for my internship, I am working with ResMed out in San Diego, California. And so ResMed is a medical devices company. Their primary focus is making CPAP machines for patients with sleep apnea or other disordered breathing diseases, I guess. And they also do respirators. So that was a big one during COVID for them. And for my internship, I'm part of the global product management team focused on the digital provider experience. So this is building intelligent products that help different home medical equipment providers or physicians. So these are the people who are interfacing with patients and helping them along their therapy journey with these different devices, just working to build digital products that make their jobs a lot easier and more streamlined, and just help them provide a higher quality experience and higher quality care to their patients. So ResMed has this huge wealth of data, just through the nature of their medical devices being cloud connected. And that's been really cool. From my internship, I've been able to dive into some of that, just to look at different relationships between patient outcomes and some of the data they're gathering, and use that to look into new opportunities for product features, and then also think about how those different features and products fit within the larger ResMed ecosystem of products, and work with a bunch of different teams to figure out kind of how to get those to market and to the point where we might be beta testing them and actually start rolling them out. So it's been a great experience so far. Happy to chat about it. And yeah, answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Shelby. Hey team, I'm Mitch Johnson. I'm at Amazon Project Kuiper out in Seattle. And we are creating a low Earth satellite constellation to provide broadband internet all over the world, very similar to what Starlink's mission is. Amazon hasn't historically been an aeroastro internship provider, but this year, as Ted alluded to, we had so many aeroastro LGOs that we needed to source a few more. And thanks to some alumni that were in the program, they actually created these internships, which we are very fortunate to have because it's a pretty cool experience. And so I sit with the manufacturing team, and we're trying to come up with better ways to go from essentially prototype to full-scale production, as opposed to just creating a few satellites all the way up into the order of thousands to cover the entire globe. It's a pretty daunting problem, as you can imagine. And my project has changed a little bit, but in a good way, in terms of initially it was more value streaming the process and understanding how we could make the overall manufacturing process more lean and better design the stations. And it's turned more into a data analytics project in terms of feeding the right and appropriate data into the manufacturing team and helping them use that to better design the factory that's going to produce all these satellites. It's been a really cool internship. One, just because it's been hands-on, like we've gotten to actually work on equipment that will be going to space, which is kind of cool. Two, it's been pretty fun being in Seattle for the summer. It's a nice time to be here, and it's been really cool to enjoy another location besides Boston, which is obviously great too. And then three, just working with some really cool people at Amazon, some of whom are LGO alumni, which has been really nice to like be able to share experiences and talk to somebody that kind of understands what you're going through from an internship perspective. So yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Tony Gariba. I am a mechanical engineering student, and for the summer I'm interning at Amgen. I started in February, so I'm wrapping up my project now, just presented to Amgen's leadership this week, which is really cool because you get a lot of visibility as an LGO student, and also similar to what Mitch had mentioned, there's a lot of alumni within the company that are so willing and so happy to help support you as you're going through your project. But more specifically, Amgen as a company is a biotech, biopharma company. A lot of their drugs today are monoclonal antibodies. And for my project, I'm in the Engineering Technical Authority group. It's a network group that helps with standardization of their technical designs across the board in their manufacturing sites. So for my project, I was working with their entire network of internal manufacturing sites to standardize their aseptic connectors that they're used for biomanufacturing. And so an analogy that I actually use is, if you think about when you travel to another country, you usually have to have a plug adapter that you use in order to be able to charge your devices in that country. So it's kind of similar with Amgen. In order to connect these different assemblies that you use for biomanufacturing, there's usually an adapter or aseptic connector that goes in between. The challenge that Amgen has today is in their library of these assemblies, they have a bunch of different connectors. So going to back to that analogy, imagine if in the US you went to work or you went to school and you always encountered a different plug adapter. That would be quite challenging. One, in terms of like the adapters that you need to bring with you every time, and you just never know what you're going to get. So during the pandemic, they had a lot of challenges interchanging these assemblies throughout their network. And especially with vaccine manufacturing being prioritized in terms of supply, they really ran into a lot of issues sourcing their assemblies. So what they're trying to do now is being more proactive in standardizing their designs across the network and starting with these aseptic connectors. So looking at the cost to do that, what the best connector would be to standardize to, and what are the benefits that they can harness if they took over this endeavor.
Great, thanks, Tony. So next we'll move on to our panel discussion. So the first question I have is, what were the factors that influenced how you ranked your internship project? What was the most important factor to you personally when deciding on your internship?
I guess I'll start it off. For me, so it's interesting, like when the internship projects come out, there's most all the partner companies offer some sort of project based on the feedback from students on their interests. So they have like a pretty good understanding of what the LGOs want to work on. For me personally, like I came to LGO to like develop new skill sets and learn like new industries. And so my background, I used to work for LA Water and Power, so Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, which is the big utility in the city of LA, working on like water resources and energy projects. And so I had a good understanding of that. And so when I was looking at internships, I wanted to kind of pick the thing that was almost like the furthest away of what I used to do, not because I didn't like it, just because I treated the 6-month internship almost as like an opportunity to like level up my skills, things I don't have that I think I want to work on, and also learn a completely different industry. And so when I was looking at the projects, I'm from Los Angeles, worked at a public utility, and then I saw, hey, come work at an aluminum rolling mill in Kentucky. I thought that might have been the most opposite thing from what I originally came from. And, I was like, I never really worked in a manufacturing plant. I definitely never understood the metals market. I don't know what private equity is. This seemed like a huge learning curve for me, and that's a challenge I wanted to take on. And that's primarily the main reason why, I chose that internship.
So for me, I come from a biotech startup just prior to starting LGO. And I've always known that I will always go back to that industry. Just wanted to kind of pivot maybe into a slightly different role. So coming in, I already had my eyes on the bio companies that are in the partner company list. So there's AstraZeneca, Amgen. And as I mentioned before, I started in February. So at that time, I believe it was only Amgen that had bio internships. So I was like, okay, definitely going to interview for Amgen. I interviewed for almost every project that Amgen had, which was a good amount. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I decided. I think also I was looking for an established company that was pretty well known, and Amgen is exactly that, because previously I was coming from a biotech startup. But I will definitely echo what Scott had mentioned. In hindsight, I didn't think about this at the time because I was more focused on biopharma and biotech. But in hindsight, I do agree that maybe choosing something that was slightly different, especially because I'm already coming from the same industry and it's probably fairly easy for me to go back into biotech. It might have been a good idea also to explore a totally different industry, just to see how things are done there and leverage that knowledge later on when I go back to work. Yeah.
I think for me, just being in the EECS department, and I know just within course 6, a lot of us are focused on artificial intelligence and machine learning and applications of those technologies. Looking at project descriptions where there was kind of a clear opportunity to apply some of those skills and kind of create a project focused around those areas was important to me. And so just through talking to different people and finding out like kind of what data they have available, how important that is to the company. Like, do they have a culture that is built around making data-driven decisions, and kind of implementing, or at least trying to implement a lot of these technologies was important to me, because I know that can be kind of a big challenge when you're an intern at these companies, is you have these ideas of what you want to do, and maybe the organization just isn't set up to do that. So it's another thing that you need to navigate. And it's definitely, I think that's another big success when you do your internship, is if you can overcome those things. But I definitely wanted just to have like access to at least some data to begin with. And ResMed seemed like an awesome place to do that, just because they have like, I think like 10 million nights of sleep data. It's a lot, regardless of which actual number it is, but just like a wealth of opportunity to dive into that and kind of like start flexing some of the more like technical muscles that I've trying to develop over the last year in LGO.
And for me, there's definitely a lot of aspects about the project that I was really excited about, but I'll touch on some other things that haven't been mentioned. Location, it was like important to my wife and I to like try out a different spot and potential spot that we might move to after school. There's a lot of partner companies and a lot of industry here in Seattle, so that was important to us. And then I'll also say too that a lot of the internships and companies have been pretty flexible with folks in terms of like personal situations. So, there's folks that split up their internship in locations, did some more remote work, things like that, if they had, family considerations that came into account in terms of where they need to be for internships. So there's flexibility, and there are like good options for everyone.
Thank you. So now I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience with the interview and matching process as a student. And I'm always curious to find out how many interviews you all signed up for.
I think I did 5, maybe 5, and I think that might be on the low end. I think I've heard some LGOs doing a lot more. And if people on the call aren't super familiar with like the matching process, I think Ted also described it in good detail. It's kind of like, you rank what projects you want to pursue for those 6 months, and then the companies rank you as well, and then it goes through the LGO matching algorithm, and then it tries to optimize best matches for everyone, essentially. And for me, like I mentioned before, I wanted to do something way different than I'm used to, and so I kind of limited the projects where I didn't have experience in, and I wanted to get a better understanding of that industry and those skill sets. And so like there's a couple partner companies like NextEra and National Grid, which are electrical utility companies. So I kind of like took them off my priority list, because I was like, yeah, I used to do that before I came, be doing the same thing. And so then I focused on certain companies where I thought the experience would be really cool. I'd learn a lot, and then the skill set would be developed. So I think I did 5. I think 4 of them were AIP, because I was kind set on working for them just because they were such a unique partner company. And you'll probably learn more about them, in different conversations. But very unique company. So I wanted to go work for them, interviewed for like 4 projects they had, and then also interviewed for Nike, and then ranked the 5, and then luckily got my top choice for project I wanted to get to do this summer.
So I did slightly more interviews. I think I ended up doing 14 or 15 in in January, February. So that was interviewing for the June start timeline. And yeah, I know that was kind of on the higher end, I believe. So I helped out with the internship interview process. So gathering all that information from students and did all the scheduling. So I kind of got to see how many people like normally do. And I think the average was probably somewhere between like 10 and 13. So people are definitely casting like a wide net and gathering information as they make their decisions about rankings. And that's kind of how I approached it. I really just looked at kind of any internships that I had like a slight interest in, and just wanted to like talk to those people and the managers that were kind of going to be running that project, just to see if there was any more information that I could get about it, because the descriptions are like fairly brief. You don't get all the information. So I went into those interviews with kind of a list of questions that I still had and things that I wanted to know, and was I guess pretty like intentional in those conversations, just trying to index for like what I was interested in to see if it like aligned with that, and found that really helpful. So those interviews, like it's more of a conversation than an interview. I think they ask you about yourself, but you also get to ask them a lot of questions, and that really helped me kind of like narrow down on which ones I actually wanted to rank. And I didn't end up ranking all the ones that I had interviewed for. I think it ended up being maybe like half of them. So yeah, I found that process extremely useful for actually like figuring out, okay, maybe I thought from the description it was going to be one thing, but this is like kind of how I feel about it afterwards. So it was a pretty smooth process, and lots of opportunity to get to know like as much as you want about the projects like before making your decision. And then you leave it up to the LGO algorithm to take it from there. And it usually works out in the end. So I wouldn't let that be a stressor during the process.
Great. And how is the transition from being a student, taking classes, to then being on internship? And if you could talk about the kind of support you received either from LGO or from your internship.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing, right? So when you come to LGO, you've already had a handful of years of experience, so you come in as a professional, right? So you make the decision, hey, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to learn new things. I'm going to continue my education. So you do that for 6 months, or for me, I did it for 6 months. I did it from June to December, so the summer semester, the fall semester, and then I was a February start. So then I had the month of January half off, and then half doing the domestic plant trek that LGOs do, which I'm not sure if everyone knows what that is, but it's like a 2-week trip visiting different partner companies, learning about their manufacturing operations, et cetera. And then I started in February. And so in terms of support, AIP has a different situation in terms of like how things get paid for, how like your living situation is. So like for the AIP interns this year, we essentially like lived in a hotel, like just traveling to different companies or traveling to their assets that they own. So you live in a hotel like 7 days a week essentially, which is a big change than what I'm used to, or what probably most people are used to. So that was a little bit of a learning curve, trying to understand or get used to like living out of a suitcase, which it's a very cool experience. Never had to clean my room or make a meal and like forever. So it was very cool. AIP definitely gives you like the support to like focus on your work, focus on making an impact at whatever company you're assigned. and, not really worrying about your living situation or what you're going to eat or any of those, like, small things on the side, because they help you take care of that. And so you can fully dive into, learning the companies, learning how to make an impact, net.
It's like Scott has some connectivity issues. Anyone else have anything to share there?
Yeah, I can share some things. So for me, what actually has been really helpful transitioning back. So it's fairly similar to working prior to LGO, I think, in terms of the experience. I think some of the adjustment is coming in as an intern. I think one of the surprising things for me was I didn't have as much power to like when I make suggestions, I feel like yeah, I guess it's a big difference compared to my full-time role before that. And so actually I saw a question in the Q&A regarding how we use the MBA side of things. So I definitely had to apply more of the influencing and more of the soft side of things to kind of like talk with people on the side and like approach things more with a curiosity mindset instead of like recommending things. I'm curious if others also have that experience, but yeah, that's something that I encountered. The other thing that was very useful though is having that LGO alumni network, which is very well established at Amgen. It's a pretty long journey of them being a partner company. And so they've recruited a lot of LGOs. And so I just set up meetings with them and like talk with them about my project. And they're so helpful with just providing insight like, oh, have you thought about this? Oh, make sure you talk to this person. And then they even go a step beyond. Some of them have connected me to those people that I need to talk to. So that's been really useful because these LGO alums are like in different areas of the company. And so some things that I don't have visibility to, or even my manager don't have visibility to. So that's like a helpful side to have.
I'll also mention that like transitioning between, being a student and then on your internship, moving, things like that, it is stressful. Like it's like plainly put, it can be tough. But I think one thing that's really helpful is like having our other classmates, like in this, especially in our class, we're a very close class, and it's really easy. Anytime you need something or you're struggling with something, it's easy to reach out to a pool of 55 other people that know what you're going through and probably have a better solution than you do yourself. And so that helps the process quite a bit.
Great. And so Mitch kind of touched on this just now, but we get this question a lot that, 6 months is a good amount of time in a 2-year program. How are you able to stay connected with your classmates while on internship? I realize some of you are just, in the more beginning stages, but would love to hear from you, particularly if you are outside of the Boston area for your internship.
Hey, Pam, is my connection okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I just turned my video off. I have low bandwidth here in Kentucky. I don't know why. But yeah, keeping in connection with LGOs. I probably did one of the worst jobs out of other LGOs. One, because I'm not in Boston. I think the majority of LGOs this year went remote, and so they stayed in Boston. So you kind of lose that community. You're not always super involved in things because you're a couple states away. The other thing is just kind of getting really focused on being like a full-time employee, essentially, like, trying to learn, trying to understand the business, and kind of like fully dove into the work here. So kind of lost track in terms of the community. But we always have a group chat going on, right? So like the LGOs, we have both with like the LGO office and ourselves, the students. So like if there's questions we had during the internship, there's challenges, you can always reach out to someone. But yeah, it's definitely like, it's on you if you like how much you want to participate in like the community events. Definitely when you're on campus, it's like an amazing experience. And then when you go off to internship, you can, be as involved as you want to, or be as involved in, being in the internship and writing your thesis. It just depends on what your time constraints are, what's important to you at that time period. But I'm extremely excited to come back to MIT next month. So it's been a good experience. I'm ending my internship actually this week. So yeah, just really excited to get back in the LGO community.
Just want to interject a quick one. With COVID and the whole transition and partners sort of coming back, there's been this remote, some things being remote. With the 24s and with the 25s, it will be much more like Shelby and Mitch's, where it's going to be an on-site. The internships are designed to be an immersion in the company culture, and getting that connection. There were a lot more remote because the partners were also committed to our students. And this is just a sort of a story of back when COVID hit. A lot of MBAs, all of a sudden internships got canceled. Not one of our internships were canceled, they were pivoted. So the partners are really committed to the students and their experience. But as a program, it's designed to be going to where the work is, doing the Gemba, and having it. So the internships are designed for being on site. Now, we have some local, Amgen has a local place, right in Cambridge, in Rhode Island. Mitch is out in Seattle, Scott's in Kentucky, Shelby's in San Diego. But that just, if you're hearing some pass down of just recent years, going forward, it's going to be looking more like 2018 and 19. Just wanted to sort of level set the question around that.
And in terms of, oh, sorry, go ahead. You go, Shelby, because I think we're gonna say this.
Sure. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I'm about as far as you can possibly get from Boston within the US. So very far from the majority of our classmates. But yeah, as Scott mentioned, we do have the group chat, and I would say that is extremely active still. Everyone is making an effort to still keep in touch, and we're yeah, we chat all the time. I know there also have been several trips that we've scheduled. So Mitch and I went with a few other LGOs out to Portland, and we got to tour Nike. Some of the current interns there were awesome enough to set that up for us. So we got to see the headquarters, and then we went out and hiked Mount St. Helens, and that was a super fun way. It was most of us just on the West Coast, but just a good way to connect and see some friendly faces and spend an awesome weekend together. I know a lot of LGOs met up in Nashville the other weekend. Some of the interns in the Southeast, so in Memphis and Mississippi and Tennessee, have gotten together. So yeah, there's still a lot happening, and people are definitely making an effort to stay in touch. And yeah, I'm trying to get the whole class to come down to California and see me, but we'll see how that works out. But yeah, it's been an awesome summer so far, and looking forward to connecting more in the fall at some of the events that LGO, the program, has set up. So we have our fall research showcase, and then a recruiting week. So when everyone will be back on campus, and there are lots of events happening. So that'll be another good way to reconnect with the class, and the class of 24 as well, meet some of them.
Great. And we have a question from an audience member, actually for Ted. Can you talk a little bit about, for international students, do they have the same internship opportunities? And also they're wondering, is there an internship list that they can review, company and internship scope?
So the internships they vary by availability for mainly engineering department. Not all companies offer projects for all engineering, but there are also some companies that don't have availability for international students, mainly due to project content and potential. There are some government contracts. There are some company policies also, just from it's not just LGO, it's their whole internship program. So that changes year to year. Again, we drive to make sure there are enough variations, and if we're seeing the projects come in and we don't have the right mix, we will go back out to the partners and push and get more. We have had the last 3 years 20% more projects than we have had students. Not every project gets matched or funded, and we give preference to the projects that serve the widest audience. So if a company has a project that is only for one engineering major, will not take sponsored students, cannot take international students, we will deprioritize that project as being available or wanting to match that because it's not serving the community. We really look at it as a community as a whole versus individual. So we have the international percentage changes year to year, but we also have international companies, with footprints around the world. I mean, so it's a constraint, but not a limitation, I guess, is the way I would answer the question directly. Tony, I don't know what your feeling is, just from some of the students. Tony was one of the internship co-chairs, so in terms of running that, she was fielding a lot of those questions from the 23s.
Yeah, so in terms of, I definitely agree with Ted, and like some of it was like related to like security also, like that's why some of the companies are not able to take international students. But even outside of that, I think there's a good subset of selections that students are still able to choose from in terms of internships. Yeah.
Great. Was there anything that surprised you all about your internship, either with your project or just the process in general, and anything you wish you had known before going on internship?
I think I didn't realize how complex and interesting aluminum rolling is. I had an idea like in the beginning thinking, yeah, this is cool, this is way different, let's try it out. But then actually getting involved in it, it's a very complex problem. And there's so many interdependencies like throughout the system. It's a very there's a lot of opportunity to like optimize or increase efficiencies. Like you could work 10 lifetimes here at this metal mill and you wouldn't be done improving operations here. So I think what surprised me is like how interesting and complex and how much work actually could be done here if you just can clone yourself and just do everything at once. There's just like a never ending amount of opportunities, both from a learning experience and for like helping the companies improve operations. So I thought that was really cool.
For me, I would say coming to Amgen, so it's large company, but actually I think in terms of the what, like they tout themselves as a large company with the soul of a small biotech, which is very cool to see. So as I mentioned before, I come from a smaller biotech, very different in terms of operations and in terms of the size of the team. So being able to see how well established and how well built Amgen's operations are, they really don't play when they say that operations is a competitive advantage for them. So being able to see how they operate in that way and being able to learn like the types of redundancies that they have in place so that they never short the market in terms of drug supplies has been very cool to see.
Great. We have another question from our audience, which is a TED question. So Someone wants to know, is it possible to do an internship with a company that's not part of one of our partners, even if they're engineering focused?
No.
Thank you, Ted. Great. Yeah, so it's a requirement to do your internship at one of our partners.
The only situation that exists is if it is a company that is in the pipeline and potentially going to be a partner. We have nuclear science and engineering as an engineering discipline, and if we don't have the projects, we may be approaching a company to bring them in for future students. So, but the short answer is no. It's a very special case that it would be with a non-partner, but it would have to be for a very particular reason, academically driven.
Thank you. How has your internship influenced the type of role or company, or I should say, has your internship influenced the type of role or company that you hope to join after LGO? And I realize some of you are just still in the beginning stages, but.
Yeah, I can answer that one first, Pam. I would say that mine absolutely has, maybe not from a role perspective, but definitely from an industry standpoint. I came from the semiconductor industry beforehand, kind of in a product management role, even though it wasn't called product management, but being in that role now, I notice a lot of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis are the same. And that's kind of reaffirmed that I like that, but I had never really considered going into kind of the health tech or medical devices industry. And being at ResMed, I've really found that I enjoy it a lot more than I thought I would. I think just being at the company, all the people that I've talked to are extremely passionate about the mission of like improving people's lives and helping them live kind of healthier, happier lives, sleep better, and just have an overall improved like quality of life. And I see that in like the way that people approach their jobs and just how much they enjoy their roles. And it's just really nice to know that like the things that I'm working on are actually have a tangible impact on people. And so that's definitely made me think like that this is something that I'd be interested in pursuing full time after I graduate, and was not something that I was considering at all before. So it's been a really eye-opening experience so far. And I'm really looking forward to the remainder of my internship this fall.
My experience has been similar to Shelby in terms of like, this is definitely an opportunity that I'll pursue full-time for recruiting. But I also know of many of our classmates that have had an experience where they've, it's kind of confirmed like, oh, I probably don't want to work in this industry or like in this specific role. And that's really helpful information too, in deciding what you want to do after school. And the nice thing about it being a 6-month internship is that you still are able to like do a significant project and like have a significant role, and like you don't leave just having decided that that's not an industry for you. You leave confirming that, but also like knowing that you did like a significant project, and you probably learned something more significant than would be like the 12-week internships that MBAs might have.
And I will just want to echo what Mitch just said. A few years back, we had a student that came in saying, I'm coming to this. I know I want to work at Amazon. I'm going to work at Amazon, just was laser focused, did his internship at Amazon, got exposed to Amgen, and said, this is my life's work. When he graduated, he joined Amgen when he graduated and has been there since. But the impacting patients' lives just absolutely captured him, and getting exposed to the company. He didn't even know Amgen existed coming into the program, but getting exposed to it through summer introduction series and interviewing and and his classmates' experience. So being open and deciding what you do and don't want to do, and using the internship to either affirm or say, yeah, no, I thought I wanted to do this, but it's a great way to learn and pivot.
Yes, thank you, Ted. So the last question that I have is, how has your internship played a role in your overall learning experience within the LGO program?
I think for me, it was really like taking like the operations knowledge you learn in the classroom and applying it to your actual internship. And like I mentioned before, like I had zero manufacturing experience. I've never worked in a manufacturing plant in my life. But then I was tasked with, hey, Scott, what's the max capacity of this plant? What should we be thinking about in the future? And it was, they're looking at me and I'm like, I don't know, I guess I'll figure it out. And so looking back at like what you learned in the classroom, applying, that logic, and then seeing how impactful it is to the companies you work at and how much value you bring. I thought that was really cool. And that was like a big learning experience for me.
I think beyond also applying a lot of the technical skills that we're learning in classes, it's a great playground for working on some of those softer leadership skills that you discuss in the classroom throughout the MBA. Everyone always says that like the classes focused around thinking about how organizations are structured and the culture and like how that impacts what kind of work gets done are the most important ones. And I think that's something that's become very clear to me during the internship. So just to get to be thrown into a situation where you really need to be thinking about these things, like Tony was mentioning, to kind of influence stakeholders in your project and work through some of those challenges has been an awesome learning opportunity. And when you talk about cases in class, but actually like getting to work through something like that in real life is completely different and an awesome learning experience, especially when you have the support system of LGO to kind of help you through that.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. So we will go ahead and wrap up. Thank you to Ted and our students for taking the time to join us today. And thanks everyone for being here. I hope it was helpful. Just one quick reminder that our round 1 application deadline is September 29th. And if you have any questions about the application or anything at all, feel free to just email us. It's just lgo@mit.edu. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.